Go live. Go live. You are live. It's alive. Oh. Good morning, friends and family. I'm so excited to be back with you. It's been a while. It's been a couple of months, actually, since we've done a coffee and conversation. And I've missed you all so very much. It's very, very early here on the West Coast, but I am so excited to bring this conversation to all of you. I don't even know where to begin. Welcome. Happy Saturday. Happy October. So before I bring on my guest co-host and my guest, and we have this amazing conversation, I have to do the thing that I never do, but I have to do it because I have to do it. I have to tell you all about what is happening here at the If You Could See Me project. It has been a very, very busy year for us, and we have grown and grown and grown, and we've been doing all of these things, and I just am so excited to tell you about them. So first and foremost, get your tickets for the Mother Wound show. Next week, we have our amazing trio of storytellers who have been working all year long to bring you this amazing show, to bring you their stories. We've had a few hiccups, a few bumps in the road, had to push our show back a little bit for various reasons. And so we are so very excited to bring you their stories of motherhood, stories of the being of a mother, the having a mother, the what even is a mother, the pain and the beauty and the complexity of this relationship that we all have on some level. It's universal, and no matter what your relationship is with your mother, you can or to motherhood in general, you can definitely will be able to find something to relate to in these amazing women's stories. So you can get those tickets on ifyoucouldseeme.com/upcoming events, or you can go to our website and click upcoming events and find your tickets. They're only $10, and everything goes back into supporting the If You Could See Me project and all the work that we are doing. We are holding a monthly free story and connection space online, holding space for stories of choice and access. So this came to be after the Supreme Court decided to take away our rights, and we need a place to process and to create art. And something's going off on my computer. I don't know what it is. A place to create art and to make connection and to feel in community with one another in an uncertain, confusing, and often overwhelming world in which one day we have rights over our own bodies and the next day we do not. So please join us for that. It's free. It is the first Sunday of every month, and we would love to have you there. Let's see. So this year we decided that in addition to all the amazing stuff that we're doing, we were going to start a podcast network. And so we've had our own podcasts for several years now. And right now, we are officially a fledgling podcast network because we have our very own new podcaster, and he is my co-host for today. James E. Bullard will be dropping his podcast, Radical Joy, Moments of Wisdom, Wonder, and Hope, this Wednesday and every Wednesday moving forward, where he will share his amazing journey and bits of wisdom that he's picked up as a traveler, as a performer, as a human on this planet with a big, fat, beautiful heart. And you just want to listen to James talk, to be totally honest with you. I want to, speaking of podcasts, thank our amazing family member, Donna Johnson Edwards, for her incredible story that she shared with us on our recent series, which just ended this past week, Wrestling the Hulk. Story of brain injury, recovery, control, and acceptance. This is an amazing and brave journey for Donna to go on and to share with all of us. And I'm just so enormously grateful to her for that. Oh my gosh, there's so many things. because I got a whole thing here and there's just so many things. And then I got a whole nother piece of paper. So I'm really trying to go fast on our If You Could See Me Conversations podcast, which is where you will find this episode after this live event and where you find all of our conversations, our coffee and conversation, our healthy minds and media, where we talk mental health and all things related to mental health and our human experience in all of its wonderful glory and confusion and complexity, and where we try to figure it out and ask big questions and figure out the answers. Right now, you can listen to our most recent Healthy Minds and Media conversation where the amazing Carrie Lynch, our production manager, and I talk about menopause, the unspoken change. Woo! No one ever told us. And now we're saying it all out loud. We also have an amazing conversation from over the summer with drama therapist and intellectual and amazing human Britton Williams. Please check that out. Please subscribe so you don't miss a thing. We have podcasts dropping every week of various topics and ideas with amazing guests. Our If You Could See Me Stories podcast recently ended our Wrestling with the Hulk series with Donna Johnson Edwards that I told you about just a minute ago. And in January, we will be dropping Coda Hale's amazing, unbelievable, epic story. Nothing stops him, he'll get through. And that's part of the show that you will find out when you read it. It's a little clip from a little song from Dumbo, but it's also a big part of his story of resilience and overcoming and courage and incredibleness. In the meantime, you can catch up on all of our past episodes, the Wrestling the Hulk series, It All Started with a Broken Pelvis series from earlier in the year, and in the interim between now and January, you will get some little short episodes, including our conversation. There's Carrie dropping links to stuff. Thank you. And now I just lost my train of thought because I can't do two things at once, y'all. I'm so sorry. It's really terrifying. I am going to be dropping little mini episodes about our Tiny Wins challenge and our Cycle Breakers challenge, and just little bits following in James's footsteps, little bits of wisdom and an insight on being a healing person in an unhealed world. Okay, so visit ifyoucouldseeme.com for updates and information, and subscribe to our mailing list and become a cheerleader at as little as $5 a month means that you are helping us to keep all of our programming free and or very affordable for anybody who is most in need. We never want money to be a barrier to any of our programs, and many of them are free. So that's it. Oh my gosh, so many things. All right, I gotta shut up. So I'm gonna just bring on my guest co-host for today, James E. Bullard.
Good morning.
Brand new host of Radical Joy. How you doing, friend?
I'm amazing. I got my cup of coffee. I got on my flashy shirt. I'm feeling fantastic. Let's do this.
Awesome. Well, we are so excited to bring your show to our network and to have you as our inaugural podcaster. That's not me.
Thank you.
What must that be like to not have to listen to only me?
Oh, come on. It's so fun to listen to you, though. It's so enjoyable because where we start is hardly ever where we finish, and it's always a fun journey. Like, this is so great. I've picked up so much along the way. It's amazing.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So before we bring on our guest for today, share with us, what you're most excited about, or what your sort of vision is, or your, what's coming up for you around your new podcast and what it means for you and for us and all of it.
Absolutely. I keep getting these wonderful opportunities to share life experience with people. They come to me with problems. Not to, I think that I've just learned in my wizened age to be a lot better listener. And that's been a really big help because I've always run my mouth like a crazy person. And now that I'm getting just a little bit more mature and starting to learn, there are a lot of people out there with a lot of really interesting stories. And with those stories come a lot of very colorful, intricate, deep-rooted problems or things that they perceive as problems. So it's really fun for me to be able to sit there and just kind of, like we say, hold that space for them and listen to them sort of put it out there, because until they speak it aloud, it just doesn't have a sense of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as it's an illusion, it's hard to address that in the here and the now. And
Mm-hmm.
so being able to have those conversations with them, or just listen to them for a while, has been this amazing experience. And since Radical Joy came into being, I'm much more noticeable. These things come across me. It's like, oh, here's my chance to shut up. Here's my chance to listen and to be present for this person who is very clearly needing to tell someone. And it's been amazing. The things that people get off their chests, it is an honor. It is a privilege. It is as scary as anything that I have ever done in my life. And to be able to be there for those people is incredible, but it's also very taxing. And I've learned that as well. I just keep learning. Like, the whole thing just continues to teach me all these wonderful things. I'm like, I hear you. I hear you. We're growing. We're growing, and we're trucking. Oh God, I'm going to need a nap and a snack.
Naps and snacks are important to the journey, taking those breaks. And, because you're right. Holding space is, scary and exhausting, because you have to sit with the truth and the reality that stuff might come up that you weren't prepared for, and you might hear something that you don't know how to manage, and you have to hold space for the completeness of the human experience. And so it's amazing to have you in the family and to be on this journey with you. So thank you so much.
Oh gosh, thank you for asking me to be a part. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right. So now we are going to welcome our guest for today. Scott Allison is the Professor Emeritus of Psychology at Richmond, University of Richmond. Oh my gosh, words. The University of Richmond in Richmond, Virginia. He is a writer. He is a visionary and a teacher about a topic that I think we don't think enough about, and that is heroism and leadership, and why we need heroes, and what's dangerous about needing heroes. And it's just sort of looking at the through the lens of being a person from this very specific point of view, although I'm sure he has lots of other points of view. So without further ado, we would like to welcome Dr. Scott Allison to our show. Hello.
Hey, how are you, Erin? Hey, James.
Hey.
We are so well. Well, I assume James is well. I'm well. I hate to speak for you, James.
I've got coffee. I'm great.
So it's always really, really fun for me to meet a person for the first time and have a first actual face-to-face conversation with someone that I think is super fascinating in this environment. So Scott, it's really nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. I've been following you on social media for a long time. I admire the work you do. And this is an honor and a privilege to be talking about heroism with a couple of really smart people who hopefully we can have a good conversation and raise some issues and ideas that will get us all thinking and moving in a better direction.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
And if I'm a visionary, I got to clean my glasses.
You don't actually have to be able to see to be a visionary. I'm hoping to prove that to be the case, because I can't see. And I also can't wear my glasses during this, because then people can't see my eyes because there's a glare on them, because I haven't mastered that skill set yet. So I'm gonna assert that you don't actually have to have physical sight to be able to see.
I like
truth.
that. That's deep. I like
Ain't
that.
It though?
Yeah.
That's so deep. Oh my gosh. How did I even come up with that? So Scott, I'm curious about what drew you to this topic.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, my whole career, I've been interested in pro-social behavior. What separates the people who cooperate, who do the right thing, who are selfless? What separates them from the competitors, the individualists, the narcissists, and the villains? And I've always been drawn to that topic for 35 years, but I never really called it heroism. I called it pro-social behavior, cooperation, morality, altruism, empathy. And then I started collaborating with George Goethals, who's in the Jepson School of Leadership at the University of Richmond. And he's a presidential leadership historian. And I look at our collaboration as chocolate and peanut butter, the invention of Reese's peanut butter cups. He was chocolate and I was peanut butter. And we discovered his interest in leadership and my interest in morality and cooperation. It just merged perfectly into this thing called heroism. And we looked at, this was about 15 years ago, we looked at the literature, the research, the scholarship in this area, and there was nothing in psychology on heroism, and we were baffled by that. And so we decided to start writing books and articles to try to shed light on what makes a hero, how do heroes develop, how do ordinary people develop into heroes, what kind of psychological needs and do heroes fulfill, what purpose do they serve in our lives, how do they help make us better people. So we've been studying these and other questions now for almost 15 years. And so that's what drew me together. Reese's peanut butter cups drew us together.
Isn't it amazing when you find your person, like you find your sort of intellectual other that it allows you to kind of create that kind of partnership?
Yeah, there's a synergy there. It's kind of like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And I think that's what we look for, whether it's in a team or a group or a friendship. In any relationship, you're looking for that spark, that synergy.
So what has been, if you could distill down 15 years worth of study and work and writing into one thing that has been most surprising to you, or that you said you've done this work for 30 years. Okay. So you've been doing it for a long time. What did you learn when you took this sort of step?
That's a good thing. It reminds me of that movie with Billy Crystal and Jack Palance. What was it called?
City Slickers?
City Slickers. And Billy Crystal's character asked Curly, "What's the meaning of life?" And Curly says, "One thing." And we never really know what that one thing is. It's kind of, so you're asking me for that, Curly, that one thing. Yes,
I am.
And to be honest, the thing that popped into my head when you asked me that was what surprises me. And maybe it shouldn't have surprised me. It's this counterintuitive reality that there is a fine line between a hero and a villain. It's a very narrow sliver. And Alexander Solzhenitsyn once said that the line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. Because what we want to believe is that all the heroes are over there, all the good people are over there, and all the bad people are over on the other side. But the reality is Solzhenitsyn was right. The line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every person. And there is this fine line between a hero and a villain. And one person's hero is another person's villain. It's very subjective and open to debate. You'd think good and evil would be easy for us to distinguish, but good and evil are not easily distinguished. And that gets us into a whole bunch of trouble personally and as a society. That we don't really clearly delineate the villains from the heroes, or that we mix them up. There's a confusion there. It's kind of sad that there should be, but maybe that's what makes us human, and that's what makes psychology interesting, is that people are endlessly complex and fascinating.
Yes.
Well, and also isn't it, James, I'll shut up and let you talk. Isn't it also, if we are willing to kind of accept the both and the wholeness of the what you posit, doesn't that mean that we all have the capacity to be both heroes and or villains, and that that creates a level playing field for all of us to some degree. There's lots of unlevel playing fields, and we'll talk about those things too. But in this area, we all have the capacity to be both.
Yes, we are both capable of heroism and villainy. In our lives, we've all done good things and bad things, and there's that non-dual. And human beings don't like non-duality. We like binary thinking, dichotomous black and white thinking. And this idea of ambiguity and non-duality is hard for our brains to process.
Yes. Well, and something that you brought up, there was a phrase, it's like, if you live long enough, every hero will live to become the villain.
That's a line from the Batman or the Joker movie. Was it Batman or Joker?
I can't remember which, but I just remember, it's like, oh my gosh. Well, and also it's the fact too that if you start your life as one, you're not just doomed to continue to be that category. You can move forward from whatever that is into either heroism or villainy. You don't have to stay there. If you look around and you realize this is not where you want to live, you do have the option to move into the other, which is great. It's not just, you know, your destiny to be, you know, black cape or white cape. You get to choose.
And I think our stories tell us that. Like Darth Vader goes from good to evil to good to evil. I mean, he's switching back and forth. In Harry Potter, Snape's is a bad guy, then he's redeemed. So I think the stories we tell emphasize this idea of redemption, that there's always growth, and doesn't matter how low we fall, we can get back up again and become heroic. In fact, the best heroes are often the people who come from the lowest depths. And that's a lesson right out of storytelling, like the prodigal son, the wayward son who redeems himself and comes back humbled. We like that story better than the older son who was always good and never strayed at all. There's something about the ups and downs of life that's natural and also redeeming and uplifting.
I think that's, you know, that if there is a way to sort of distill down what the If You Could See Me project is, it exists in this space, right? The idea that, you know, that we are more than what may be perceived about us. We are more than what society tells us we're supposed to be if we have done A, B, C, D, or had A, B, C, D experience. And we can be more than the story that we've always told ourselves about who we are and what we are worth and, you know, how we are allowed to operate in the world. It's, you know, it's sort of sitting in that ambiguity and saying, I can be all of these things and still, you know, be worthy of love and respect and kindness and dignity and success in, you know, in the world. And, you know, but it all, you're right, it all comes from the story, right? Like whether it's the story that someone told you about yourself, or it's the story that is told to you by modeling, or the way that people interact with you in the world, or, you know, the way in which that has been internalized. It is, you know, where we find hope. But first we have to be able to see that in ourselves.
Yes.
Yes. Good. Well put. Well said.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, James, I sent you the article that, you know, after I read this article on, you know, on heroism that Scott wrote back in the spring for Psychology Today. I sent it to you because after I read that article, I invited Scott. And so it's been months that we've been waiting to have this conversation. But James, I sent it to you, and it was the first time you had seen it, just like in the last week or so. So tell me, you know, what came up for you, and did you have any questions that arose for the esteemed professor?
It was such a crushing thing to read. Honestly. And I mean, honestly, if I may be absolutely candid, I promise I'm coming around to something good. We're going to start with my first initial gut reaction was just a kick in the gut, because everyone gets this story as they grow up about you're going to change the world. You can do all of these things, etc. And you just put it so plainly. It's like the rules of math say that that's just not going to happen. Okay, so let's just go ahead and put that on the table as we start. And it's like, well, just the odds alone of you actually becoming some sort of cosmic, you know, a cog in the universe
Cosmic
that can't be done.
specialness.
Right.
Love it.
Cosmic specialness. I love that. And it's like, just don't get your heart set on that, pal, because like, you know, just the odds of it are just, you know, go buy a lottery ticket. They're better there. I was like, okay, all right. And once you are freed from that enormous burden of having to become this extraordinary, capital E, life changing, society disrupting amazingness, you can work on those small things that you can affect and what can spin the world around you on a sharper axis. That's the part that I love. That gives you permission to not be some Cape Crusader, some vaccine maker, or whatever you want to do. What you can be is someone's friend. You can be someone's dad. You can be someone's confidant. You can be the person they look to whenever they need to do X, Y, and Z, which is something they've always wanted to do, which again, may not make them change the world, but it'll change their world. And that is more than significant and sufficient. And that's wonderful. Being able to take that giant burden off so that you can really focus on the important things in your microcosm of effect was amazing. It's like, yeah. Because I need to focus on what
So
I
you
can
got
do.
it, James.
I absolutely got it. But I needed to make sure that everybody knows, like, ow. And then
first, let me apologize that I depressed you briefly. But I think you extricated yourself. You climbed out of that pit very nicely by recognizing that that very few of us are going to be Gandhi or Nelson Mandela or Mother Teresa, but we can do little things. And there's a whole theory of heroism that says that true heroism is not doing one great big thing, but doing lots of little things well. And we all know, you and I, the three of us know that small acts of kindness have a ripple effect throughout eternity. And I think we underestimate how acts of kindness, even the smallest gesture, makes a difference and has a ripple effect in ways we'll never understand or appreciate.
Agree. And part of me is grateful we won't, because I continue doing those. Part of me would feel a little bit self-conscious knowing the effect some of those small kindnesses, in my perspective, radiate and magnify with others, because then you start getting this feeling in your head like, oh, I should do this because, instead of operating on, I should do it because kindness is a really easy thing to trade. It's a really easy, simple thing to put into the world, and something that cost me this much, if even that much. I like to think about them being tiny. And that's what we talk about here all the time, the tiny wins. These little things that we do that once they get out of us, again, ripple effect. It just continues to build. But it's not mine to look forward to see where that's going. It's mine to continue to put my finger in the water to make more ripples.
Well, that also keeps you present. And we can't worry about the past or fret about the future, but we can stay present and do the next right thing, knowing in our heart that that's what we're called to do. We're called to treat each other with love and respect. And that's everything. Every day-to-day loving kindness is what matters most in the present moment. So I think you've got the heroic attitude, the mindset. You've got it.
So what comes up for me in this exchange right here is, I don't know if it's like some sort of meta thing, but I'm going to point it out because, it is also part of this conversation. And that is that we are often in our lives confronted with opportunities to look at things that push our buttons or challenge us or feel hard to see, right? So James and I are both performers, and we have these sort of grandiose ideas about how to be in the world. And so to have someone, a psychology professor, say to us, yeah, you're not really all that special. And I'm not speaking for you, James, but that is a moment where you are invited to sit with yourself, right? And to sit with your ideas of who you are and who you might be. And, you can choose to go, excuse my language, fuck this guy. No, thank you. I'm going to go over here and stay in my little world where I know who I am and what, you know, and live in that sort of self-delusion place. Yeah. Or you can, you know, be with your discomfort and be invited to look inside yourself and to sit in that sort of uncomfortable space and acknowledge your own ego and acknowledge your own, you know, sort of, I'm doing a lot of studying right now on internal family systems. And so that is for those who don't know, that is sort of a therapeutic approach created by Dick Schwartz that posits that we all have these parts, right? And it's relatively complicated, and I'm not going to go into it in great depth, but I know that my performer is a part of me that needs to be noticed and acknowledged, because she is there because she was part of what made me feel worthy in my life, right? Like that I needed to earn my worth. I needed to earn my place on this planet. And so unchecked, she is out there in the world, but she's there because she's trying to keep me from feeling those feelings of loneliness and invisibility and sadness that, you know, were so present for me as a child. And so your piece, Scott, reading that initial bit was like, ooh, this hurts, because I have a lot of shame around my performer part. And I know that I've got to, you know, kind of sit with that bit of myself. But to do that allowed me to get through to the bottom of your article and to recognize there's so much value in this way of thinking. And so when we find ourselves in these situations where we're reading a thing and it pushes our buttons, I'm inviting all of you to allow yourself to sit in that discomfort, in that uncomfortable place, and to figure out why. Right? Like sitting with curiosity and asking yourself, what is this? Why is this, you know, scratching a scab? Why does this feel painful? Do people come back at you? Do you have people who go, ew, this hurts, or I don't like this, or I am a hero?
I think what you're talking about is very important in terms of motivating us. I mean, all of us, it was Joseph Campbell, Joseph Campbell, who was the comparative mythologist who studied heroism mythology from around the world. And he found there was this common structure to all hero stories. And one of his favorite phrases was, follow your bliss, follow your bliss. And I think the three of us kind of found our bliss in storytelling and the healing power of story, and trying to help make the world a better place. This is very important. And so I think we're back to what we talked about when we first started, non-duality. There's a complexity. So we can view ourselves as one of two extremes, right? Back to that binary thinking. I'm a totally insignificant biological creature on a speck of dust in the solar system, which is a speck of dust in the Milky Way galaxy, which is a speck of dust among trillions of galaxies. When you think about that, it's very humbling and how small and insignificant we are. At the same time, we're also miraculous. We're not just insignificant specks of dust. We can hold the equally important truth that each one of us is a miraculous creation that's important and special to the people around us, to the well-being of life and the universe, that there's this holding of attention between feeling spectacularly insignificant and feeling incredibly important, and that the truth is somewhere in between, or we hold both truths at the same time. Yeah. They're both true, and that's okay. We can be vastly insignificant in the scheme of the universe and its infinite size, and we're also incredibly important to our family and friends, and the things we do make an important difference in the here and now. And I'm okay holding that tension. I think it's what makes life even more miraculous, that both of those things can be true, that we're incredibly special and we're incredibly insignificant. But what we do matters. And I know it matters based on what my family and friends are to me and me to them, and what we're trying to do to make this planet a better place and make humans better. So I love this idea, because these are big issues. And I think it gives us, follow your bliss. It's telling us, find what gives you joy. Find what gives you a sense of aliveness. What's your passion? Where does your deep joy intersect with what the world needs? So we got Venn diagrams. You've got what the world needs and what your joy is, and also what the world needs. So you've got your bliss at that intersecting point between what you're good at, what brings you bliss and joy, and what the world needs. And I think the three of us have found it, are working on it in our own flawed, imperfect way. We're doing what we're meant to do. And it's very important, because it is part of the human journey. And I've always said the human journey is the hero journey. All humans, and you said that earlier, Erin, that all humans are capable of heroism. And that's what we're called to do, even though we're perfectly capable of the dark side.
Right.
We're more,
right. Which is why humility is so important, right?
Yes.
Like if you are,
Crucial.
you know, seated in that place of like, I'm not any better or any worse than anybody else. Yeah. I have this in me, and it's important to keep it in check.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's what Scott, I think, was mentioning earlier. I love that idea, is the fact that I am crucial to a very specific set of people, and then I am wildly insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And we can go out as far as you want to make yourself that speck of dust, but holding that tension, I love that idea, that very specific strand between those two ideas. It will continue to push you to be better, to improve, and to make your journey more interesting and fuller. And it will also keep you in a place of, will keep you in your place. It's like, yes, and I am in the grand scheme of things, because I used to work on cruise ships. So I would, stand on the deck and look out, and you can't see anything except water and moonlight in every direction for as far as the eye can see. And that smallness that you feel, that stillness that you feel, is very similar to that. And it just kind of like locks everything into perspective. Yes, I am, and I am. And that is what keeps the whole thing spinning in the way that, you keep working, but you don't get away from yourself as often as you could.
Scott, the phrase "nothing new under the sun" is coming into my heart in this moment. And probably that's a inaccurate paraphrasing or whatever. But, when I'm reading your stuff, I'm thinking Trump. Like, I'm reading
I'm
this
so
article.
Sorry my work makes you think of him. I apologize. That's painful.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, because this is the moment, and this is the moment that I live in, and I see, the charismatic leader and, all of that. But what then when I sit for, just a second longer, Trump isn't new, right? This idea of this person that comes along that captures the attention and, brings out the worst in, millions and millions and millions of people. And in your work over the last 30 years, like, what has this moment meant to you as a scholar in this particular area?
This moment of Trumpness?
Yeah, the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I remember. Okay, so in the early 1960s, you remember during the Civil Rights Movement, there was a bomb set off in a Birmingham church that killed several little girls. And someone asked Martin Luther King Jr., who's responsible for that? And he said, I'm responsible, you're responsible. Everyone created the person. Society, what we're all part of, created the person who was capable of putting a bomb in a church that killed little girls. So I'd say the same about Trump, that we created him. Our culture, all the darkest, most immature, short-sighted aspects of our culture created the possibility that someone like Donald Trump could be venerated and could achieve the highest office in the land. Something bad about ourselves, the darkest sides of human nature, greed, wrath, lust, all the 7 deadly sins, pride. Somehow we became a country that valued people who represented the worst of humanity. And I think it's if I had to say what one thing created Trump, it's our misguided notion that wealthy people are heroic people. Better. Right? We equate wealth with greatness, as if money makes someone wise and worthy of leadership. How did that happen? It could only happen in a country that worships money above wisdom or love or truth speaking. So it's been really sobering watching the Joker take over Gotham City.
Yeah. Oof. Oh, wow. That's a real, I love it when you use terms that I can really get under. That whole like superhero business. I'm like, Star Wars, Scott, got you, bud. Like, yes, thank you for bringing it to the people. It hurts to watch these things happen. And I sit there and I wonder and I shrug and I get angry or I just surrender or any number of things to these situations. But then I have to continue to come back to that idea that you just said. This didn't just appear out of nowhere. This is not from the ether. This is not something that was made and unleashed. This is something that was cultivated and nurtured and it just came into being like a dark pearl inside this giant slimy oyster that we have made. And I'm just like, well, okay. Now, how do we unmake?
Wow. Ooh, that pearl image, that slimy pearl image.
I know, right? Like that a pearl can have such a It's true. It's true. Well, that's, I mean, like Scott just said it, Katie, one of our family members and listeners and brilliant therapist and writer and thought person herself in the world, just highlighted only a country that worships money. And so, I love the visual of the slimy pearl, because that's basically what we're talking about, right? Like this thing that on its own can be so beautiful and so miraculous, and it has been turned into this sort of disgusting tool for control and power and harm in the world. So thank you, James, for that terrifying visual that I will carry with me indefinitely. I wanted to, and we never have enough time, and so I'm just going to kind of jump on this topic. I don't feel like it's too far of a leap when we're talking about Trump and the many charismatic leaders who all just happen to be men. These sort of villains in our world and in our history, and I can't have two straight white dudes on my show together simultaneously and not talk about masculinity and toxic masculinity and not sort of hold a mirror up to this and say, where are you? Where are we? What is your value system? Like I don't want to make you responsible for all men, obviously, but I do kind of want to open up this conversation. And Scott, in particular, you're talking about heroism through the lens often of, superheroes, which are sort of these archetypal masculine, whatever words, what I'm saying.
Uber, alpha, hyper, all the things.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So like, how do we heal from this? Like, what do we do? Y'all are clearly not toxically masculine, although I'm sure that has been an unlearning. in your lives. You know, James is coming onto our network and, you know, really sort of holding space for this idea of being a vulnerable, you know, open, poetic, lovely human who is, you know, will cry and wants to connect with people and wants to sort of recreate this idea. So, you know, what are our first steps? How do we make this a safer, more caring, loving world for my sons?
Yeah. Scott,
so is that my question? Or
I don't fucking know.
That to James.
You're throwing the ball in your court
the
first,
world, y'all. Let's just save Scott.
Well,
it's time for you to save the world.
I love
there's a lot. There's a lot. That's a complicated question. We need about 4 more hours. But
that's fine.
But
you can come back.
Let's distill it down to stories. I think here's a quick answer.
Yeah.
The stories men believe about themselves and their lives have not evolved. They've not kept up with technology. So throughout most of human history, what you call toxic masculinity, which is the uber male, the powerful, muscular warrior male, that was a useful thing for humans to have around until the industrial age. That was actually helpful for humanity to survive a very primitive existence, hunting and gathering, tribal existence. But in the modern age, the masculine story has not evolved, has not kept up with technology. And so now you have warrior men like Kim Jong-un and Putin and Trump and the leader of Brazil and Hungary, and goes on and on and on. Now Italy, apparently. It's a woman in charge of Italy who has the toxic masculine mindset, right? So we're not talking about biology, gender. We're talking about
a belief system.
A belief system that more men have than women, but it's both genders, but it is primarily a male problem. I will concede that. That's obvious. And so what we need to have is for the softer, gentler story to become integrated into the male life. So your sons, you've got 2 young sons.
Yeah.
My goodness, we should be
16 and 13.
And encouraging them to be gentle and loving and compassionate.
Yes.
And not encouraging them to flex their muscles and beat up people and throw their weight around like they rule the planet. No, we don't need any more T-Rexes, Tyrannosaurus Rexes. We need loving, kind, gentle people. It's more the traditionally feminine model. So women have the traditional stereotype of the feminine story is one of nurturance and kindness and gentleness. And that's what the world needs now, especially in the age of nuclear weapons and biological weapons. And it's just
Tucker Carlson.
So the male story has not kept up with the times. The male story is lagging behind. That's why so many men are lost. So many boys are lost because they don't have a story. They don't have a mythology that works because the old mythology is outdated and we don't have that new one that's really become acceptable.
Right.
That is
nuanced, right? Like we've been talking this whole time about the both andness things, right? That 2 things can be true simultaneously. And like it is entirely possible to, raise people with, an appreciation for the value, the good in sort of all of these expressions, energetic expressions, the yin and yang, the soft and the hard, the nurturing and the more action oriented. And why do we have to assign one of the, this sort of binary idea of, you can only identify with sort of one area, but in I try so hard not to use the word but
I love it.
It's just as in my value system.
Sure.
And we live in a world that has Tucker Carlson and, you know, Fox News and this sort of chest beating of storytelling that is, you know, do you know how often I have to have conversations with my kids about these, you know, toxic people on YouTube that they hear about, and then, you know, and their friends are venerating, and then we have to go on this long journey of, like, my parents never talked to me when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Nobody had to have a conversation with me about anything. Yeah. And, you know, every day it's, you know, this one is espousing this belief system, or this one is abusing this person, or this one is, you know, abusing their power. And, you know, we have to really sit down and have conversations about, like, well, what do you think is the right thing? And what do you believe to be, what are you comfortable with? Is this something that you feel safe or comfortable, you know, as your belief system? And fortunately, my children say no, and they, you know, speak up for what is right. But, you know, I know there's a lot of teenagers out there whose parents aren't talking to them about all of this stuff.
And parents expecting the world to change instead of them having these difficult conversations repeatedly with their progeny about how to be better people and members of society. Mm-hmm. And here's a tip. If you're trying to change the whole world so that one person is safe or protected or acceptable by the behavior they're exhibiting, you should probably take a closer look at how effective you think that's going to be in the long term. Because it's one of those things, these conversations have to happen. Mm-hmm. Whether it's with a parent or a mentor or a teacher or in whoever has that person's attention needs that. I'm putting the responsibility, the onus on them. They need to take responsibility for having that conversation. It's not difficult. What it is important. And it's an interesting one, a fascinating one to maneuver, I think, but it's one that is crucial to the making sure that moving forward as a society that we can change the story that we hold in our hearts for what is the template for proper behavior or for kind behavior. Proper is such a terrible word. Kind behavior, nurturing behavior, societal behavior, bringing a sense of community to individuals so that they can make that community among their peers. That is so important. And we continue to be like we keep saying, like beating chests or these kinds of things. I think one of the, I don't want to say sad, but it's one of the things that affects us so deeply is the fact that whenever we had to be the hunter-gatherer, you know, muscle-bound, etc., that aesthetic is pleasing. And now we don't necessarily need the aesthetic because we're not living that lifestyle. And so we still want it. And if we can have the behavior without the aesthetic, maybe that will be enough to compensate. Coming from a very vain, you know, lifestyle and profession, it's like, you know, okay, yeah, got to spend time in the gym if I want to look like the hunter-gatherer of, you know, the club them over the head kind of situation. And not everybody gets that opportunity. Not everybody has that kind of free time. And so, well, I can't do that. But what I can do is continue these attitudes and outlooks and perspectives so that at least I've got some of that package, and maybe the rest will follow if I'm that guy. That's not how any of this works. And I love that fact. We have to come up with the stories. We have to replace those with the fact that the kinder, gentler, still strong, still very firm, still very masculine, holding a very specific color and light in that specific zone without all of the performative jazz that goes along with it. Like, you can absolutely be a loving, caring, kind human being and still be very much a man, however you define that, or woman, however you define that. I love the fact that everything that you've said today, Scott, leads with kindness.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes. And okay. And if I may add,
come on in here. Yeah.
That means kindness and compassion for the other side. So I badmouth Trump, but many of my friends and family voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Now, I did not. I will not. But I have to be willing to concede that maybe they're right about valuing certain traditions. You know, conservatives, their point of view is not all bad. Again, we have to be compassionate
Mm-hmm.
and conciliatory and accepting of individual differences, and be able to listen to the other side
Mm-hmm.
and have compassion for them, rather. So, because vilifying the other side,
Right.
and this is why I have a problem with our two-party political system. I think
Right.
it's inherently violent. And
Mm-hmm.
I can, part of the stories we teach our kids has to be being able to listen and to keep an open mind and think, be able to think independently, and not be tribal in our thinking, whether it's political party or religion or gender, not be tribal, but to be able to be compassionate and listen and independent in how we evaluate the polarities all around us.
You're talking to me. You are talking to me.
Yep.
I need to be better. I need to leave that space open.
Oh, me too. We all do.
We
Absolutely.
all do, right? Like
Absolutely.
this is, it, you know, I get angry and I get frustrated, and I hear, because I hear so much pain, and because I sit in this compassionate space of like, I have a lot of people who, you know, occupy like marginalized or intersectional identities, right? And so I hear constantly how they've been harmed by this, you know, the reality of all the things that we're talking about, whether it's women or people of color or LGBTQ plus folks, and, you know, and people with disabilities, and we go on and on and on and on, right? And, you know, it is true that, like, I'm going back to what I said earlier about, like, if you've never been invited to challenge or sit in your own discomfort, or sit in discomfort with things that make you feel afraid or uncomfortable, then you do not have the skills to, you know, invite other people to do the same thing, right? Like, if you've never done it and you've been told your entire life there is literally only one way of being correct and good, and that the wrong way leads to damnation,
yes,
right? Then it is incredibly difficult to have these conversations with your children. It is incredibly challenging to, you know, and that doesn't mean that I don't hold people accountable for their, you know, the harm they cause, right? Yes. Like, I'm not excusing it. And I can have compassion for what underpins it, right? Like, I can say, I see that you are afraid. I see that you are uncertain. I see that without this system of beliefs and ideologies, you are, I mean, I have many clients who are recovering from immense religious and spiritual trauma. Right. And so when you remove the framework of that, it is damaging, right? People have nowhere to put things, and it's terrifying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
Agree.
Thank you, Scott. You know, last few minutes, I you know, as an educator and as a person who sort of, you know, has students, I imagine, or has historically had students. Professor Emeritus, does that mean that you're not teaching anymore, or?
It means I teach very part-time. Like, I'm teaching a class on leadership next semester, but I'm almost non-teaching, more of a scholar, a writer, an author, an editor now.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Excellent.
But what has been your experience with young people who come in, who, you know, who you share these sort of, you know, who you invite to explore themselves and their beliefs and their, you know, understanding of the world through this lens? You know, do you find that it's relevant to them?
They're hurting. I mean, we've got the younger generation, for many reasons. They're struggling with anxiety and depression, and now economic pain, and they're searching for a mythology. I think Joseph Campbell had it right, that the stories that we rally around, that we identify with, they're missing now, because religion is waning, right? Religion is being phased out. And that used to be the glue that held us together. So even though religion is damaging and sometimes crazy, it was something. Even Carl Jung, who was an atheist, saw the value of Christian symbols, but they're disappearing. So the kids today, they have nothing to latch onto, and they're hurting and they're drifting. And it's really difficult to help them on their journey, but I try to help them by telling them, first of all, the mythology I subscribe to is the stages of the hero's journey, which includes suffering. It includes being humbled. and struggle and setback and loss and being in the dark night of the soul, the belly of the whale, the abyss, all those images. Being lost is part of the journey toward being found. And I tell them to hang in there and trust that they're exactly where they need to be, even though they're struggling and they're in pain. Yeah. Trust that you're where you need to be. Find people, find help, like both of you, find mentors, find the right mentors, because they're the wrong ones. Yeah. Find the right mentors who are available to help you become your best self and who will be there with you through the hard times. It will help you find the light, because the light is there. The light is real. Yeah. And we're meant to flock to it, to gravitate to it. But it takes time, it takes trust, and it takes help from others. And so this hero's journey thing is an amazing journey that we're all on, and trusting that we're all on this process, this miraculous process is key, is really just hold on and have faith.
Yeah. I love that. Something too that I try to tell my friends whenever we speak about things similar, lean into it.
Oh, I like that.
Lean into it. I love the thought that you're saying, just hold on. I love that. But I want my people to, like, while they're holding on, I want them to put a shoulder right in the middle of it.
Oh, I love that image. That's a better image than the slimy oyster.
Good. Thank you.
I like the leaning in, because that way you're not in denial. You're acknowledging the reality of the challenge, and you're embracing it, and
I'm meeting it.
You're meeting it.
I am not a passenger. I am driving this train. I may not be the only one steering, but I promise you, this is not me being passive. This is me taking an active part in this, so that it does not happen to me. It happens with me.
Ooh. That's fantastic, James. Can I write that down?
Absolutely. I'm flattered as heck. Yes, go right ahead. It's just, I love the fact that so many of these things are things that we try to shy away from. And I never want to shy away from any of this, because the stronger we become by digging into the darkness, the brighter the light we can shine once we get through it. Because your idea of this beautiful light that we flock to, Scott, is something that I like to think that we're all carrying our own candle. And we combine our light with what's already there, provided by everybody else in our community, just to make it that much brighter. Again, I'm not a hero. I'm not changing the universe with my light, but I am adding to the force that can with the light that I bring to it.
That's good. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I think that in closing, the hero's journey encapsulates all of it, right? The good, the bad, the both and, right? So I do a lot of that. I do a lot of dialectical behavior therapy. And so the dialectical is that two opposing facts can be true simultaneously, right? And so I think that the healthiest way for us to be, and the easiest way for us to eliminate our own individual and collective suffering, is to sit in the place of that. And we have discussed that sort of at great length today, that we hold both heroic qualities and villainous qualities simultaneously, and that we do have some agency. We have a lot of agency. We also operate within, many of us, some of us more so than others, operate within systems of oppression that limit how much agency we can have and how conscious we have to be of, what is happening. And so to sort of always also hold those realities and those truths in our hearts. Scott, did you have something that came up for you there? I saw a thought or something.
No, I was inwardly applauding what you were saying. That you just saw my inner applause meter going off.
I love it. I'm a fan of outer applause meters myself, but that's just my own ego.
It's, ego is not the enemy. We talk about, egocentric, again, non-duality. Humility is great, but we
Yes.
also need to have some self-esteem and confidence to go into this world and do our thing. So
it ain't bragging if you can back it up.
I'm constantly going back and forth between the two, but yeah, so like all of these things, and you know, and holding space for the truth of all of it, right? Like, you know,
yeah,
that, I think that's the big message. I just encourage all of you out in the world that are listening, or who have watched us today, or who may be watching this recording at a later time because they live, you know, in perpetuity on our Facebook page. You can watch them or listen to them at any point, but, you know, to read Scott's work, to consider your own, you know, thoughts about the topic. You know, who do you venerate? Who do you hold up? You know, what are those qualities or those traits that you admire in those people that cause, you know, you to have that? And what does that say about who you are and where you are and what your own values are? How easily do you sit with duality? How easily do you sit with discomfort in challenging your own, you know, beliefs and values to grow and to be the best you can be? You know, I'm doing this right now, doing this Cycle Breakers challenge. Because what is core to my being, the more work I do, the more clear it becomes sort of what I'm doing. And so, you know, I am a cycle breaker, and I work with cycle breakers. And one of the things that that can be, you know, that can be challenging is to, you know, it's easy to do the work of setting boundaries and learning to protect yourself. It can be more challenging when you are healing from trauma to learn to also hold other people's boundaries and not take them personally, or to listen to things that butt up against our own, you know, beliefs or values about ourselves, or how we wish to be perceived, or how we wish to control perceptions of ourselves. And so conversations like this are an opportunity for all of us to consider what it means to accept that, you know, there's good and bad in all of us. And so I just say thank you both so very much for joining me today. And James, we cannot express how excited we are at If You Could See Me to have you as part of our family. And Scott, whenever you want to come back and talk about this or any other big ideas, please know that you're always
But you're
welcome.
not sick of me yet? Oh
my
gosh,
no. See what happens when you sit at an If You Could See Me table, virtual or in person, is that you are now a member of the family, and your seat at the table remains. So whenever you want to come back, you are welcome.
That's awesome. Thanks to you both. Great meeting you, and thanks for the fabulous chat. This was we just scratched the surface here.
That's it.
Seriously.
That's it.
That's what
invite everybody to go out and figure out how you want to continue this conversation in your world.
Excellent.
Awesome. Happy Saturday, y'all. See you soon. Get your tickets to the Mother Wound.
Thank you, Erin.